The sun was hot over the small village in northern Nigeria. The dusty ground was warm under Shamima's bare feet as she ran, laughing, through the fields. She was 13 years old, with bright eyes and a smile that lit up her whole face. Her cousins were chasing the goats, and she chased them too, her blue wrapper tied tightly so it wouldn't fall as she ran. "Come back here, stubborn goat," she shouted, laughing. The goat bleated and ran faster, and the children screamed with joy. She loved days like this, simple, free, full of sunshine and fun. She didn't care that her feet were dirty or that the sun burned her skin a little. She only cared about her dreams. Big dreams. Beautiful dreams. One day, she told herself, "I will wear a white coat. I will carry a stethoscope. I will help women give birth. I will stop their pain. I will become a doctor." She had never seen a doctor who looked like her, but she believed, deep inside, that she could be the first in her village. Later that day, as the sun began to drop in the sky and the air cooled, Shamima returned home. She washed her hands and sat on a wooden bench beside her mother, who was peeling yams. Her aunt, Auntie Asabe, came to sit with them. The two women lowered their voices, and their words grew serious. Shamima wasn't really listening until she heard her name. "She's the right age," Auntie Asabe whispered. "We must prepare. It is time." She looked up, confused. Time for what? She wondered. But they said no more. Her mother's hands moved faster. Auntie Asabe's eyes glanced at her, then away. Later that night, as the sky turned dark and the stars blinked awake, Shamima sat alone, looking at the moon. The village was quiet. Too quiet. Something had changed. There was a strange feeling in the air, like when thunder hides behind a blue sky. And though she didn't know why, Shamima's chest felt tight. Like a bird trapped in a cage, flapping its wings and not knowing how to fly out. The drums had not started yet, but the silence was louder. The next morning, the village felt like it always did, quiet, warm, and full of the sounds of roosters and sweeping brooms. But Shamima felt different. Like the ground beneath her was no longer safe. She walked around slowly, her thoughts heavy. She tried to play with her cousins, but she couldn't laugh like before. Something about Auntie Asabe's words kept ringing in her ears. "It is time." That afternoon, as she came back from picking mangoes, she heard voices inside her mother's room. The door was slightly open. She wasn't trying to listen, but she heard her name, and she stopped walking. "She must go through it," Auntie Asabe said. "It is our way. Every girl goes through it. It brings honor to the family." "She will be clean," her mother whispered, almost as if she didn't believe it herself. "And she will be ready for womanhood." Shamima froze. Her eyes widened. Her chest began to rise and fall quickly. She didn't understand everything, but she had heard the older girls talk in secret. She had seen Fatima, her neighbor, return from the bush crying and unable to walk for days. Now she knew. They were planning it for her. Shamima's heart began to pound like a drum. Her hands felt cold even though the sun was hot. She turned and ran. She didn't stop until she reached the small riverside behind the baobab trees, where she used to play as a child. There, she dropped to her knees and cried, quiet, shaking tears. She didn't want anyone to hear. The river flowed gently beside her, like it was whispering a secret too. "I don't want this," she whispered to no one. "I don't want it." And for the first time in her life, She felt truly alone. But somewhere, deep in her chest, a tiny voice spoke. You have to do something. That night, the stars blinked gently over the rooftops of Jidendogo. Crickets sang in the dark, and the wind moved softly through the trees like a sigh. But Shamima couldn't sleep. Her heart was heavy. Her eyes were sore from crying. She stared at the ceiling, then sat up quietly, careful not to wake her siblings. There was only one person she could talk to. Grandma Binta. Shamima stepped into the night and tiptoed across the yard to her grandmother's small hut. The door was open just a crack, and the oil lamp inside made the shadows on the wall dance like ghosts. Grandma, she whispered. Came the soft, tired voice. She stepped inside and found Grandma Binta sitting on her mat, her back straight despite her age. Her hair was gray, her skin deep brown like the earth, and her eyes held stories. Shamima sat close, her voice trembling. Grandma, I heard Mama and Auntie. They said it's my turn. For a moment, the room went still. Then Binta gave a slow nod, as if she had been waiting for this day. She looked into Shamima's eyes and said gently, You are not the first to be afraid, my child. Then she told a story Shamima had never heard before. When I was your age, Binta began, they took me into the bush. 4 women held me down. I screamed, but the trees didn't speak. The birds flew away. Shamima's eyes filled with tears. Did it hurt? Binta didn't answer right away. She looked away at nothing, then said, They said I was now clean, that I was now a woman, but they never cleaned the pain from my spirit. That pain stayed. She slowly lifted her wrapper and touched the old scar on her leg, a limp that never healed. She looked at her grandmother differently now, not just as an old woman, but as someone who had carried a quiet pain for years. Binta reached out and touched Shamima's cheek. Her hand was warm and rough. You don't have to be silent, she said softly. You are not a goat to be led to the knife. You are a girl with a voice. She leaned into her grandmother's arms. And in that small hut, under a sky full of stars, something inside her began to change. Shamima woke up to a strange smell in the air. Not food, not rain, not dust. It was something sharp, like smoke, herbs, and fear. She sat up quickly. The house was quiet, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that comes before something bad. She stepped outside. Women were gathered near the big tree. Some carried bowls of water, others held bunches of herbs. Shamima's heart dropped when she saw the old woman with the long scarf, the one they called Mama Bacha. She was the cutter. Shamima's eyes followed her hand and saw it. A razor blade, thin, silver, shiny. It was being placed in a small pot of hot ash to clean it. Shamima's breath caught in her throat. She turned her head and saw something worse. Fatima, her cousin, her friend, carried out of the hut by 2 women. Her legs were shaking. Her face was wet with sweat and tears. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Shamima took a step back, then another. But before she could move farther, she felt a hand grab her wrist. It was her mother. Her eyes were swollen. She had been crying, but her grip was firm. Shamima, she said, her voice trembling, you must be brave. It is for your future husband. Shamima's lips parted, but no words came out. Her whole world started to spin. Husbands, pain, razors. Is that what being a woman meant? She looked into her mother's eyes and wanted to scream, "Why are you letting them do this to me?" But her mother only held her tighter. In that moment, Shamima felt like the walls of the village were closing in. The sun above her suddenly felt too hot. The ground under her feet felt like it would give way. Somewhere in the distance, the drums began to beat. Before the rooster crowed, Shamima was already awake. Her heart thudded in her chest like a drum. The village was still asleep, but she could hear the wind blowing softly through the trees. Harmattan had come early this year, dry, dusty, and cold in the morning, even under the Nigerian sun. She wrapped her thin shawl tightly around her shoulders. She had no shoes, just her feet and her will. Then, like a whisper in the wind, she ran. Her wrapper flapped wildly behind her as she moved through the bush paths. The dust stung her eyes. Thorns scratched her legs. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. She was running not just from a ritual, but from a future she didn't want. From silence. From pain. Her breath came fast. Her chest ached. Her legs burned. But in her mind, she could hear Grandma Binta's voice. "You are not a goat to be led to the knife." So Shamima ran. Her destination was far, a small town called Jirai, where people whispered about a women's center. Some said it was run by foreigners. Others said it was run by a woman from their own land, someone who had once been a teacher. Auntie Rahila. Shamima remembered her, tall, kind, and strong. A woman who spoke softly but made big changes. She had left the village years ago. Now, people said she ran a place where girls could be safe. With her last bit of strength, Shamima reached the dusty road that led to the town. The sun was rising now, orange and full, but Shamima couldn't see it anymore. Her vision blurred. Her legs gave out. And in front of a small compound with a wooden gate and a faded sign that read Rahila Women's Shelter, Shamima collapsed. She was shaking, dusty, and out of breath. But she had made it. She had run through the harmattan and found a door that might open. Shamima was safe for 2 days. She slept in a soft bed at the women's shelter. Auntie Rahila gave her warm food, new clothes, and a quiet hug that felt like sunlight after a storm. But peace does not last long in a village where tradition runs deep. On the 3rd day, her uncle arrived, tall, angry, with dust on his shoes and fire in his eyes. "Come," he said. "You have brought shame to your family." Shamima's heart sank. She looked at Auntie Rahila, who gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I will not stop you," Rahila said, "but you have the right to speak." Shamima nodded, even though her legs felt like jelly. They brought her back to Jaidan Dogo in silence. That evening, the elders gathered under the big tree near the mosque. The sky above was a dull gray, as if it too waited to hear what would happen. Shamima stood before them, her hands at her sides, her head held high. The village chief, with his red cap and deep wrinkles, looked at her with cold eyes. "She has run from our ways," he said. "She has shamed her blood. Such girls must be purified, or they curse the land." Murmurs of agreement floated through the crowd. Some women nodded. Others looked down. Shamima searched the crowd for her parents. Her father stood quietly at the back, his arms folded, his head low. Her mother knelt on the ground, her face wet with silent tears. Shamima's heart broke a little, but her voice grew stronger. She stepped forward, and then slowly, clearly, she spoke. If I must bleed to be accepted, if I must suffer, if I must be cut to belong to this village, then I will never belong. A sharp silence fell. Gasps echoed. Some women covered their mouths. An elder coughed and looked away. Even the birds above stopped singing. Shamima's chest rose and fell. Her hands were shaking, but she did not hide them. She let them see. Let them feel it. I am not dirty, she said. I am not broken. I am not less of a woman because I still have all of me. One girl near the front blinked back tears. Another boy stared at the ground, ashamed. The chief's mouth tightened. But Shamima had already won something, even if just for that moment. She had broken the silence. And silence, once broken, can never return the same. The air hung heavy after Shamima's words. The elders sat still. The women stood frozen. The village square had gone silent, as if even the wind was listening. Then, from behind the crowd, a strong voice broke through. This girl has courage. Heads turned. It was Auntie Rahila. She stepped forward slowly, her head high, her eyes calm. She wore a simple dress, and her hair was tied in a plain scarf. But when she spoke, she carried the weight of truth. She has knowledge, Rahila said, and she has a future, one that will help your daughters, your wives, your granddaughters. If we cut her spirit today, who will save the ones tomorrow? People shifted uncomfortably. Then, from the side of the crowd, a woman from the market, Mama Kulu, who sold tomatoes and pepper, nodded slowly. She is right, Mama Kulu whispered. I lost a child to infection after the cut. We never speak of it. Another woman, young, with a baby tied to her back, quietly removed her headscarf and held it out. Not to wave, not to surrender, but as a sign of solidarity. Gasps moved through the crowd. A quiet, slow rebellion had begun. The chief's eyes swept across the gathering. He saw the cracks forming in his wall of silence. He saw daughters standing behind their mothers. He saw truth standing beside fear. And finally, after a long pause, the village chief gave one last look at Shamima. His eyes narrowed. His lips pressed tight. And then he turned away. He said nothing. Not yes, not no, just silence. But this time, the silence meant something new. It meant change had begun. The mango tree had grown taller since the last time Shamima stood beneath it. Its wide leaves gave shade from the afternoon sun, and the wind danced gently through the branches. Around her sat a group of young girls in school uniforms, some cross-legged, some leaning on their friends, all with curious, shining eyes. Shamima, now 19 years old, stood in front of them. She wore a white hijab, her smile warm, her eyes steady. Her voice was calm, but it carried the strength of everything she had been through. They tried to take my choice, she said softly. They told me pain was tradition, that bleeding meant becoming a woman. But I chose to fight. The girls listened closely, their eyes wide, hanging on every word. It was not easy, Shamima continued. I was called stubborn. I was called shameful. But I held on, because deep inside I knew something. I was born whole, and no one had the right to break me. She paused for a moment, breathing in the fresh scent of mango leaves and dusty earth. Then she looked out into the crowd. and her gaze found her mother, standing quietly in the back, dressed in soft blue, her eyes full of tears. But this time, they were not tears of sadness or shame. They were tears of pride. Her mother gave a small nod, the kind that said more than 1,000 words. And Shamima smiled. She looked back at the girls. Some of you will grow up to be doctors, some teachers, some farmers, some mothers. Whatever you become, remember this: your voice matters. Your body is yours. And if anyone tells you that pain makes you pure, tell them, no, I am already enough. The wind whispered through the leaves again, as if the tree itself was proud. Then, Shamima took one final breath and ended with the words that had lived in her heart for years. I am whole. I was born whole. And in the silence that followed, a new kind of tradition was born, one made of courage, truth, and the power of saying no. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.